The mountains of Helmand Province stood black against a starless sky. No moon. No light, except the green glow of night vision and the distant flicker of tracer fire stitching through the darkness. August 2011, 3:42 hours. The ambush came from everywhere at once. Master Chief Garrett Vance pressed his back against the compound wall, feeling the impact of rounds chewing into the mud brick above his head. Dust and fragments rained down. His radio crackled with overlapping voices, his team scattered, pinned down across 50 meters of kill zone. "Hawk sitrep!" Garrett's voice cut through the chaos. "We're bracketed," Commander James Hawkins responded from behind a disabled Humvee. RPGs on the ridgeline PKM fire from the north wall. "We're stuck." Garrett surveyed the situation through his no odds. 7 men, his men, trapped in the open with enemy fire converging from 3 directions. The extraction bird wouldn't risk landing in this. They had maybe 2 minutes before the enemy reinforced and overwhelmed them completely. 2 minutes to live or die. He'd trained for this moment his entire adult life. 20 years in the teams, hundreds of missions, always brought his men home, always. His eyes found the problem, a machine gun nest on the northern wall. Elevated position, perfect fields of fire. Take out that nest, and his team could move. The question wasn't whether someone needed to go. The question was who. Garrett keyed his radio. "Hawk, get the team to the secondary extraction point. I'll suppress the north wall." Static. Then Hawkins' voice hard and urgent. "Negative, Garrett. We extract together. That's an order. You're not in command anymore, Hawk. I am. And I'm giving you an order. Get them out. God damn it, Garrett. Tell my daughter I love her. Tell her I did my job. Tell her..." The RPG streaked across the compound like a falling star. Garrett never finished the sentence. The explosion consumed everything sound light thought. The shockwave lifted Hawkins off his feet and slammed him into the Humvee's quarter panel. His ears rang with a high-pitched whine that drowned out the gunfire that screams everything. When his vision cleared, the north wall was burning. Garrett's radio hissed static, nothing else. "Garrett, Garrett!" Only silence answered. But the machine gun had stopped firing. The enemy was scattering, confused, disorganized. The team had their window. Hawkins made the hardest call of his life. All elements bound to secondary extract. Move, move. 7 men ran through the smoke and darkness. 1 stayed behind. Present day. Commander James Hawkins stood before the memorial wall at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado, studying a name etched in granite among hundreds of others. The morning sun had just begun to edge over the Pacific, casting long shadows across the compound. Master Chief Garrett Vance. SEAL Team 3, August 14, 2011. Helmand Province, Afghanistan. 13 years. Felt like yesterday. Felt like forever. Hawkins was 62 now, silver threading through his close-cropped hairlines, carved deep around his eyes from 2 decades of squinting through desert sun and ocean spray. His body carried the accumulated damage of 100 insertions, 1,000 training evolutions. Left knee rebuilt, right shoulder held together with surgical steel. 3 cracked vertebrae that ached when the weather changed. But he was still here, still serving, still commanding SEAL Team 3, still living with the weight of that night. He reached out, touched Garrett's name with weathered fingers. The stone was cold. "I got them out, brother," he whispered. "All 7, just like you wanted, just like you." "Commander Hawkins," the voice came from behind him, young and female, with a slight tremor that spoke of nerves barely held in check. Hawkins turned and felt his heart stop. She stood 15 feet away in navy dress whites, cover tucked under her arm in regulation manner. 26 years old, according to her service record, but in this light, at this angle, she could have been Garrett's ghost. Same cheekbones, same slight upward tilt to the chin that spoke of stubborn determination. Same blue-gray eyes that seemed to see straight through pretense and into truth. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a tight regulation bun. She stood at parade rest, spine-straight, shoulders squared. 5'3" according to her file, but she carried herself like someone who'd learned long ago that size meant nothing compared to will. Lieutenant Ilara Vance, K-9 Operations Officer. Top of her class at Naval Academy. Highest marks in K-9 Handler School in 15 years. Exemplary service record. Garrett's daughter. Hawkins felt time collapse. Saw Garrett holding a newborn in the hospital. Fierce love and terror warring in his expression. Saw that same baby, now grown, now standing where her father used to stand, wearing the uniform he died in. Lieutenant Vance, his voice came out rougher than intended. I wasn't expecting you until 0800. I wanted to see it, sir, before reporting. My father talked about this place every day of my life. The grinder, the compound, the memorial. I needed to... She trailed off, eyes moving past him to the wall, to the name. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Alara stepped forward, stopped beside Hawkins, and stared at her father's name etched in stone. Her jaw tightened. Her hands clasped behind her back, clenched and unclenched. He walked through these gates 847 times, she said quietly. I counted. Every story he told, every mission he mentioned, every training evolution. 847 times he came home, until the last one. Hawkins swallowed hard. Your father was the best SEAL I ever served with. Best man, too. He saved 7 lives that night, including mine. Alara nodded slowly, didn't look at him. I know. You wrote to me. After. I was 13 years old, and you wrote me a letter explaining how my father died a hero. How he charged an enemy position to draw fire. How he gave you and the team the window you needed to extract. It's true. Every word. I know it is, sir. I never doubted it. She finally turned to face him. But I also know that for 13 years you've blamed yourself. I can see it in your eyes right now. Hawkins felt exposed, naked under that steady gaze. This girl, no, this woman, this officer saw too much. Lieutenant, it's not your fault, Commander. My father made his choice. He knew the stakes. He did what SEALs do. He completed the mission. She paused. Now I'm here to do mine. Hawkins studied her, seeing past the uniform to the person beneath. Determination, yes. Skill and training, absolutely. But also, something else. A shadow of pain that came from growing up without a father, from carrying a legacy she never asked for. Part of him wanted to protect her, send her somewhere safe, somewhere far from combat and danger, and the possibility that she might end up as another name on this wall. But another part, the part that sounded like Garrett's voice in his head, knew that would be the worst insult possible. Walk with me, Lieutenant. They moved through the compound as the base woke around them. SEALs in PT gear ran past in formation boots, pounding the asphalt in synchronized rhythm. Instructors barked orders at a class of candidates crawling through the surf. Zone cold Pacific water, washing over their exhausted bodies. The smell of salt and sweat hung in the morning air. Alara took it all in with quiet intensity, memorizing every detail. I'm going to be honest with you, Hawkins said. When I saw your name on the transfer orders, I tried to block it. Alara's stride never faltered. Sir, I owe your father a debt I can never repay. Keeping you safe seemed like a start. Seemed like the least I could do for him. With respect, Commander, my father wouldn't have wanted that. I know. Your commanding officer at K-9 school made that very clear when he called to chew me out. Said you're the best handler he's trained in 15 years. Said blocking your assignment would be a disservice to the Navy and to Team 3. He's generous with his praise. He's honest in his assessment. I read your file, Lieutenant. Every page. Your scores, your evaluations, your operational recommendations. You earned this posting through merit, not through your father's legacy. They stopped at the K-9 training facility, a sprawling complex of kennels, obstacle courses, and training buildings set back from the main compound. The sound of barking echoed from inside. Hawkins turned to face her. But I need to know something before we go further. Why are you really here? Alara met his gaze without flinching. Because I'm a K-9 operations officer, and this is where I'm assigned. That's the official answer. What's the real one? She was quiet for a moment, considering. When she spoke, her voice was steady, but softer. Because my father spent his entire adult life serving in the teams. Because he believed in this mission, this brotherhood, this calling, believed in it enough to die for it. Because I grew up listening to his stories, learning from his example, understanding what it meant to be part of something bigger than yourself. She paused, then continued, and because I need to know if I have what it takes, if I can carry forward what he started. Not live up to his legacy, that's impossible, but honor it. In my own way, Hawkins felt something tight in his chest loosen slightly. This was Garrett's daughter, all right. Honest to a fault, driven by purpose rather than ego. All right, Lieutenant. Welcome to SEAL Team 3. He extended his hand. She took it. Her grip was firm, her hands calloused from years of handling dogs and weapons. One more thing, Hawkins added. Your father was my swim buddy, my brother. That means something. If you ever need anything, advice, support, someone to talk to, my door is open. Understood? Understood, sir. Thank you. Now let's go meet your new challenge. The K-training facility smelled of dog's leather and the industrial cleaner used to sanitize the concrete floors. 8 kennels lined the east wall, each housing a Belgian Malinois or German Shepherd in various stages of training. Most of the dogs watched with calm alertness as Hawkins and Alara entered their handlers, having established good rapport and discipline. Most, but not all. Master Chief Brennan Ashford waited inside, standing beside the last kennel with his arms crossed and his expression skeptical. 58 years old, built like a fire hydrant, short, thick, and immovable. His red hair had faded to rust, shot through with gray, and his face carried the ruddy complexion of someone who'd spent decades in harsh weather. 25 years in K-9 operations. Trained more handlers than anyone in naval special warfare. Traditional in his methods. Skeptical of change, especially change that involved women in combat roles. Master Chief, Hawkins said, this is Lieutenant Alara Vance. She'll be joining us as a K-9 handler. Ashford's eyes swept over Alara in quick assessment. Ma'am? Master Chief? Alara's tone was professional neutral. We've never had a female K-9 handler in a SEAL team, Ashford said without preamble. Not because of policy, because of practicality. The dogs we use, the missions we run, the physical demands, it's not like regular MPK-9 work. I understand, Master Chief. Do you? Because I've read your file. Top of your class at K-9 school. Impressive scores. All the right qualifications on paper. But paper doesn't mean much when a 75-pound attack dog decides to test you, or when you're humping a 60-pound ruck through mountains with that dog on lead, or when bullets start flying and you need to make split-second decisions that keep both you and your K-9 alive. Alara didn't rise to the bait. You're right, Master Chief. Paper doesn't mean much. Performance does. That's why I'm here to perform. Ashford's eyes narrowed slightly, then shifted to Hawkins. Sir, we have a situation. K-9 named Thor. Malinois, 4 years old. Most aggressive dog I've seen in 25 years. He's injured 3 handlers in the past 6 months. Last one, Seaman Walsh, needed surgery on his hand. Crushed 4 metacarpals. He pulled up a tablet, showed them photos. Bite wounds deep and vicious. Medical reports documenting torn tissue ligament damage puncture wounds that had gone deep enough to scrape bone. Command wants him put down, Ashford continued. Too dangerous, too unpredictable. But he's also one of the best explosive detection dogs we've ever tested. His nose is phenomenal. His drive is off the charts. If we could get him under control, he'd be an incredible asset. But you can't get him under control, Hawkins said. No, sir. Not with conventional methods. Positive reinforcement doesn't work. Compulsion training makes him worse. Electronic collar, he doesn't even respond to it. It's like he's broken something fundamental inside. Ashford looked directly at Alara. Lieutenant, I don't think it's appropriate to use you as a test case for Thor. You're too inexperienced, and he's too dangerous. But the commander overruled me, said it should be your choice. He paused, letting that sink in. So here's the situation. You have 72 hours to prove Thor is salvageable. If you can get him under control, basic obedience, no aggression. Mission, ready behavior. He stays operational. And you keep your posting here. If you can't, Thor gets euthanized, and we reevaluate whether you're suited for this role. The challenge hung in the air, unsubtle, and waited with expectation of failure. Alara's expression never changed. Show me the dog. They walked deeper into the facility, past the operational K-9s, with their handlers, past the training rooms and equipment lockers to the far end of the building where isolation kennels stood, separated from the main population. The last kennel had warning signs posted on 3 sides. Caution: aggressive canine. No approach without authorization. Bite risk. Maintain distance. Through the chain link, Elara saw him. Thor, Belgian Malinois, 75 pounds of coiled muscle and barely contained violence. His coat was the traditional tan, with black masking on his face, but his posture radiated aggression. He paced back and forth in the kennel. Head-low hackles raised along his spine. A continuous low growl rumbled from his chest. His amber eyes tracked every movement outside his cage with predatory focus. Scars marked his muzzle, where a muzzle had been worn too tight for too long. His paws showed signs of overtraining on hard surfaces. But despite the evidence of rough treatment, his body remained powerfully built, athletic, explosive. "He's been like this since we got him," Ashford explained. "Came from a private contractor 18 months ago. Records show basic obedience, but nothing advanced. Within 3 weeks here, he'd put his first handler in medical with 33 stitches. The second handler tried more aggressive compulsion methods, got worse. Third handler, Seaman Walsh, attempted to establish dominance. Thor crushed his hand." Ashford's voice held something between frustration and respect. "No one's been able to get within 10 feet of him without protective gear. He won't take food from handlers, won't respond to commands. It's like every human is his enemy." Elara moved closer to the kennel, stopping at 15 feet. Thor immediately fixated on her, the growling intensifying. His lips pulled back to expose canine teeth designed to crush bone. But Elara wasn't looking at the aggression. She was reading the body language beneath it. Weight distribution. Front-loaded, yes, ready to attack. But also defensive, protecting himself rather than seeking prey. Ears pinned back, not forward. Classic fear aggression, not dominance aggression. Tail tucked slightly, not raised. Lip licking between the snarls, a stress signal, not just threat display. "He's not aggressive," Elara said quietly. "He's terrified." "Ma'am?" Ashford's tone suggested he thought she was being naive. "Look at his body language, Master Chief. Really look. He's not attacking because he wants to hurt people. He's attacking because he doesn't trust anyone, and aggression is the only defense mechanism he has left." She studied Thor more carefully, her eyes cataloging every detail. The way he moved, the rhythm of his pacing, the angle of his head when he tracked movement. Then she saw it. A small notch on his right ear. Barely visible, healed over, but distinct. The kind of scar a puppy might get from catching an ear on chain-link fencing. Elara's heart stopped. Memory crashed over her like a wave. 4 years ago, San Diego. Tactical Canine Solutions Training Facility. An 8-week-old Malinois puppy with tan coat and black mask playing in the training yard. The puppy catching his ear on the fence, yelping blood on the chain link. Elara rushing him to the vet, holding him while the wound was cleaned and treated. The vet's voice: "He'll have a little notch there. Won't affect him. Just a reminder to be more careful." Elara naming him Odin after the Norse god of wisdom and war. 18 months of training him, bonding with him, developing the kind of partnership that went beyond handler and dog into something deeper. Trust, love, understanding. Then the facility owner selling Odin to a military contractor without warning. Elara begging to know where he was going. Being told it was classified. Watching the transport van drive away, with Odin inside, his face pressed against the window. Whining, looking back at her, her heart breaking. Now, standing in this kennel, looking at this aggressive, traumatized dog, Elara felt the world tilt. Thor took a step forward, still snarling but with less conviction. He sniffed the air nostrils flaring, trying to catch her scent through the metal and distance. Elara forced her breathing to remain steady, forced her expression to stay neutral. "Lieutenant," Hawkins' voice came from behind her. "Your assessment." She tore her eyes away from the notch on Thor's ear, turned to face them. "I'll need to review his complete file. Training history, medical records, every handler report. I want to know everything about this dog before I make my approach." "You've got 72 hours, Ashford reminded her. "That's not much time." "Then I better get started, Master Chief." She took one last look at Thor. The dog had stopped pacing, was now standing still, staring at her with those amber eyes. Something in his posture had shifted, less aggressive, more confused. Odin, she thought. What did they do to you? The BOQ Bachelor Officer Quarters at Coronado provided Alara with a small efficiency apartment overlooking the ocean. She'd unpacked quickly, setting her few personal possessions on the standard issue furniture. Photos of her father in various duty stations, a framed copy of his sealed trident from the funeral, her grandfather's retirement shadow box with his own trident and service ribbons. But instead of resting after the long day of check-in and orientation, Alara sat at the small desk with Thor's file spread before her, a lamp casting harsh light over pages of reports, medical records, and training evaluations. She read every word. Thor's official record began 18 months ago when he was purchased from a private military contractor for $50,000. Prior to that, nothing. No breeding information, no early training records, no indication of where he'd come from or how he'd been raised. Just a blank space where the first 2 years of his life should have been. Alara flipped through handler reports. First handler, Petty Officer Andrews. Subject shows excellent drive, but inconsistent response to commands. Attempts to establish rapport unsuccessful. Bite incident occurred during routine handling exercise. Second handler, Chief Petty Officer Morris. Subject requires firm corrections. Positive reinforcement methods ineffective. Implemented compulsion training protocols. Subject's aggression increased significantly. Third handler, Seaman Walsh. Subject displays dominance issues. Attempted to establish handler authority through physical correction. Subject responded with severe bite attack, resulting in medical evacuation. After Walsh, no one had been willing to try. Alara closed the file, leaned back, pressed her palms against her eyes. The timeline was perfect. Odin disappeared into contractor hands 3 years ago. Thor appeared 18 months ago with no history. Same age, same breed, same physical characteristics. And that notch on his ear. But she needed to be certain before she revealed anything. Needed to know this wasn't just wishful thinking or coincidence. She checked her watch. 0200 hours. 4 hours until she needed to report for duty. Alara had changed into civilian clothes, jeans, dark t-shirt, running shoes. She grabbed a small backpack, packed it with training treats and something else, a worn t-shirt she'd kept in storage for 4 years, never washed, still carrying the faint scent of the dog she'd trained and lost. Then she headed into the night. The K9 facility was dark and quiet at 2 in the morning. Security lights cast pools of illumination across the compound, but the training buildings were locked and empty. Alara used her access card, newly issued, already active, to slip inside. The dogs stirred as she entered, curious but not alarmed. They were used to odd hours, irregular schedules, the chaotic rhythm of military life. She moved past them to the isolation kennel at the far end. Thor was awake, pacing in the darkness. His eyes caught the light and reflected it back, glowing amber, in the shadows. The low growl started immediately. Alara stopped 20 feet away, didn't approach, didn't make eye contact, just lowered herself to the floor, sitting cross-legged with her profile to the kennel. Non-threatening posture, submissive body language, patient stillness. Minutes passed. Thor continued pacing, continued growling, but with less intensity. His eyes kept returning to her, trying to understand why she wasn't approaching, wasn't challenging, wasn't threatening. After 30 minutes, Alara began to speak, softly. In German, the language she'd used to train Odin, the commands that had become their private communication. Guten Abend, mein tapferer Junge. Good evening, my brave boy. Ich habe dich vermisst. Missed you. Thor froze mid-step. His head tilted slightly, ears pricking forward for the first time. The growl faded to silence. Alara continued, voice barely above a whisper. Erinnerst du dich an mich? Erinnerst du dich an Wald und Meer? Do you remember me? Do you remember forest and sea? She'd trained Odin on trails through the Cleveland National Forest and along the beaches of San Diego. They'd spent hours working scent detection in those environments, building his skills while strengthening their bond. Thor took 2 steps toward the front of his kennel. His posture had shifted completely, no longer aggressive, now alert and intensely focused. He sniffed the air, nostrils flaring, seeking. Alara slowly reached into her backpack, pulled out the worn t-shirt, held it up. 4 years of stored scent, her scent, the scent of the person who'd raised him, trained him, loved him. She tossed it gently toward the kennel. It landed 5 feet from the chain link. Thor stared at it, took another step forward, then another. He pressed his nose against the kennel door, stretching as far as he could reach, trying desperately to catch that scent. His tail, tucked in fear and aggression, for months began to wag. Just slightly, hesitantly, like he didn't quite trust what his nose was telling him. A whine escaped his throat, not a growl. A whine high-pitched, plaintive, confused. Alara felt tears burn her eyes. "It's you," she whispered, in English now. "After all this time." She stood slowly, careful not to startle him. Moved closer. 10 feet. 8 feet. 6 feet. Thor pressed against the kennel door. Tail wagging faster now, whining continuously. Every inch of his body language screamed recognition, desperate hope, overwhelming confusion. At 3 feet, Alara extended her hand toward the chain link, palm down. Thor pushed his nose through a gap in the fencing, touched her hand, and licked her fingers. The aggression was gone. The fear was gone. In its place, joy. Pure, desperate, heartbreaking joy. Alara pressed her forehead against the chain link, and Thor pressed his muzzle against the same spot from the other side. She stayed there until her tears stopped flowing, and Thor's whining faded to contented silence. From the shadows near the facility entrance, Petty Officer First Class Declan Thorne watched the entire exchange. 32 years old, sandy brown hair, athletic build, he'd drawn late-night security rotation and decided to do a physical check of the K9 facility rather than relying solely on cameras. Good thing, too. What he'd just witnessed would have been invisible on security footage. The new lieutenant, the one everyone was betting would wash out in 72 hours, had just done something impossible. She'd made contact with Thor, without protective gear, without weapons, without backup. And Thor, vicious, aggressive, dangerous. Thor had responded like a puppy reuniting with his mother. Thorne was New Generation SEAL, part of the post-9/11 wave, who'd grown up with female soldiers serving alongside them in Iraq and Afghanistan. He didn't have Ashford's skepticism about women in combat roles. What he had was a deep respect for competence, regardless of gender. And what he just witnessed was extraordinary competence combined with something else. Something that looked like love. He didn't interrupt, didn't announce his presence. Just watched, memorized what he saw, and filed it away. Tomorrow was going to be interesting. Very interesting indeed. Alara stayed with Odin. She couldn't think of him as Thor yet until 0400 hours. Then she reluctantly left, knowing she needed at least 2 hours of sleep before the demonstration that would determine both their futures. She walked back to her quarters through the pre-dawn darkness, her mind racing with plans and possibilities. The challenge Ashford had laid out was designed to be impossible. 72 hours to control an aggressive dog no one else could handle. A setup for failure that would justify removing her from Team 3. But Ashford didn't know what she knew. Didn't understand that Thor wasn't a broken dog. He was a traumatized dog. More specifically, he was her dog traumatized by being ripped away from his original handler and passed through 4 different training programs with 4 different methods and 4 different people trying to break his spirit. No wonder he'd become aggressive. No wonder he trusted no one. But his bond with Alara hadn't broken. It had simply been buried under layers of fear and confusion. Now, in 48 hours, she needed to dig through those layers and prove to everyone watching that she and Odin belonged together, that they were mission ready, that they deserved their place in Team 3. The sun was just beginning to edge over the horizon when Alara reached her quarters. She showered, changed into her uniform, and stood before the mirror, adjusting her cover. Her father's seal trident sat on the dresser beside her. She picked it up, ran her thumb over the Eagle Anchor pistol, and trident that symbolized sea, air, and land, the domains where seals operated. "Dad," she said quietly to the empty room, "I found him, I found Odin, and tomorrow I'm going to prove to all of them that we belong here, that I earned this, that your legacy isn't about living up to your shadow. It's about walking my own path with the same honor and courage you taught me." She placed the trident back on the dresser, grabbed her cover, and headed out into the California morning. 48 hours remained. Time to make them count. The morning sun blazed across the canine training facility, turning the California dust to gold. By 0800 hours, 40 seals had gathered in a loose semicircle around the isolation kennel, their expressions ranging from skeptical curiosity to outright hostility. Word had spread fast. The new female lieutenant was going to attempt contact with Thor, without protective gear, without backup, without, as one petty officer put it, a functioning survival instinct. Commander Hawkins stood at the front of the crowd, arms crossed, face unreadable. Master Chief Ashford waited beside him, holding a tablet, with Thor's medical and incident reports displayed. A Navy veterinarian stood ready with a sedative dart gun, and a corpsman had his medical kit open and accessible. They expected blood. Alara arrived precisely at 0800 uniform crisp, despite the 4 hours of sleep she'd managed. She carried a small tactical bag containing treats, a clicker, and the worn t-shirt from last night. No bite sleeve, no protective suit. No weapon except her father's K-bar knife on her belt. The crowd parted as she approached. She felt their eyes on her, weighing, judging, waiting for failure. Ashford stepped forward. "Lieutenant Vance, for the record, I'm advising against this approach. Thor has injured 3 trained handlers. You should be wearing protective gear at minimum." "Noted, Master Chief." Alara's voice was calm, professional. "But protective gear communicates distrust. I need Thor to understand that I trust him." "Thor doesn't understand anything except aggression, ma'am." "We'll see." Hawkins caught her eye. For a moment, something passed between them, a silent question, a wordless offer to stop this before it went too far. Alara gave the smallest shake of her head. She was committed. Alara approached the kennel. Thor immediately went into his aggressive display. Hackles, raised teeth bared a continuous snarl that promised violence. Several of the watching seals shifted uncomfortably, but Alara saw past the display to the body language beneath. The defensive weight distribution, the fear in those amber eyes, the desperate confusion of a dog who'd been betrayed too many times by too many handlers. She knelt 15 feet from the kennel, set down her bag, and pulled out the worn t-shirt. Held it up so Thor could see it, smell it, remember it. Then she did something that made the crowd murmur with disbelief. She turned her back to Thor, sat down, placed the t-shirt on the ground in front of her, and waited. Seconds stretched into minutes. The snarling continued, but with less conviction. Thor paced agitated, trying to understand why this human wasn't challenging him, wasn't threatening him, wasn't doing what every other handler had done. 3 minutes passed, 4, 5. Then the snarling stopped. Alara heard the change in Thor's breathing, slower, deeper, less panicked. Heard his claws on concrete as he moved to the front of the kennel. Heard him sniffing the air, seeking the scent that had triggered something deep in his memory. "Odin," she said softly in German. "Platz." Down. The command hung in the morning air. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then Thor lay down, nose pressed against the chain-link tail, giving one hesitant wag. The crowd's murmur grew louder. Ashford's jaw tightened. Hawkins leaned forward, slightly. Attention, laser-focused. Alara stood slowly turned to face Thor and approached the kennel gate. Her hands were steady as she reached for the latch. "Lieutenant, I strongly advise," Ashford began. "Noted, Master Chief." She opened the gate. Thor remained lying down, but every muscle in his body was tense, coiled, ready. His eyes tracked her every movement with desperate intensity. Alara stepped inside the kennel and closed the gate behind her. The facility fell silent. Even the other dogs stopped barking, as if sensing the weight of this moment. Thor's nose worked frantically, pulling in her scent, processing it, comparing it to memories 4 years old. His tail began to wag faster, then his entire hindquarters started wiggling. A whine escaped his throat, high-pitched, plaintive, heartbreaking. Alara knelt 3 feet from him, extended her hand, palm down. "Come here, mein tapferer Junge. Come here, my brave boy." Thor exploded forward, not in attack, but in desperate greeting. He pressed against Alara, whining continuously, licking her face, her hands, her arms. His entire body trembled with overwhelming emotion. Joy, relief, confusion, hope. Alara wrapped her arms around him, buried her face in his neck, and felt 4 years of grief and loss crash over her. "I'm sorry," she whispered, in English now, not caring who heard. "I'm so sorry they took you. I'm so sorry I couldn't find you sooner. But I'm here now. I'm here and I'm never leaving you again." Thor pressed harder against her, as if trying to burrow into her skin, trying to make absolutely certain she was real, and not another cruel dream. From outside the kennel, Declan Thorne spoke up, his voice carrying across the stunned silence. "His name isn't Thor, is it?" Alara looked up, tears streaming down her face, and shook her head. "No, it's Odin. I trained him from 8 weeks old at Tactical Canine Solutions in San Diego. 4 years ago. He was sold to a military contractor when he was 18 months old. I didn't know where he went. I joined the Navy partly to find him." She stood, Odin pressing against her leg, and faced the assembled SEALs. "Odin bonded with me during his critical socialization period. That bond is neurologically permanent in dogs. The aggression you've all witnessed isn't his nature. It's trauma response." Her voice strengthened, taking on a clinical tone as she explained for the benefit of the audience. Dogs trained with positive reinforcement, who are then subjected to compulsion training, experience cognitive dissonance. They don't understand why behavior that previously earned rewards now earns punishment. This creates learned helplessness, which manifests as defensive aggression. She gestured to Odin, who sat calmly beside her, now leaning into her leg. Odin was passed through 4 different handlers in 18 months, each using different methods, different commands, different expectations. He stopped trusting humans entirely. Aggression became his only defense mechanism. Ashford stepped closer to the kennel, studying the transformation. And now he remembers who he is, who we are together. Alara ran her hand over Odin's head. "He's not broken, Master Chief. He never was. He was just lost." She moved to the kennel gate, opened it, and stepped out with Odin at heel position. Perfect control. Perfect synchronization. "Sits. Sit." Odin sat immediately. "Platz. Down." Odin dropped into a down position. "Bleb. Stay." Alara walked 20 feet away. Odin remained motionless, eyes tracking her, but body perfectly still. "Higher. Here." Odin sprinted to her side, sat at heel without being commanded. The demonstration was flawless. Textbook. The kind of handler-dog synchronization that took years to develop. Because it had taken years to develop. Hawkins spoke, his voice carrying authority that silenced the murmuring crowd. "Lieutenant Vance, you've proven connection. Now prove operational capability. Obstacle course, full run. Standard time is 5 minutes, 10 seconds. Let's see what you and Odin can do." Alara met his gaze, saw the challenge there, and nodded. "Yes, sir." The obstacle course stretched across 200 meters of varied terrain. A-frame climb 12 feet high, dark tunnel 30 feet long and completely enclosed, balance beam 20 feet long and 8 inches wide, tire jump 4 feet high, 6-foot vertical wall, 30 feet of crawl under barbed wire, water obstacle at the end, a pool 15 feet across that dogs had to swim while handlers ran alongside. Alara walked Odin to the starting line. He was alert now, engaged, his body language completely transformed from the aggressive wreck of yesterday. This was the dog she remembered, focused, driven, eager to work. She knelt beside him, spoke quietly in German. "Bereit." "Ready." Odin's tail wagged once. His muscles tensed in preparation. Ashford raised his hand, holding a stopwatch. "On your mark. Go." Alara and Odin exploded forward as one unit. The A-frame first. Odin charged up the steep incline without hesitation. Alara running alongside, shouting encouragement. "Goot wider. Good, keep going over the apex and down the other side. 4 seconds. Into the tunnel." Dark and closed, the kind of space that triggered claustrophobia in some dogs. But Odin had been trained for this, had learned to trust that darkness wasn't danger. He disappeared into the black opening with Alara sprinting around the outside to meet him at the exit. He burst out 8 seconds later, tongue-lolling eyes bright with joy. The balance beam, narrow elevated, requiring precision and confidence. Odin trotted across it like he was walking on solid ground, never hesitating, never faltering. Ilara's commands came sharp and clear. Langsam, gut, waiter, slow, good, keep going. The tire jump, 4 feet high, requiring explosive power. Odin gathered himself and launched through the opening with inches to spare, landing perfectly, immediately focusing on the next obstacle. The vertical wall, 6 feet of smooth wood that dogs had to scramble up and over. This was where many canines failed their claws, finding no purchase, their courage faltering. But Odin had learned this obstacle years ago, had practiced it hundreds of times with Ilara guiding him. He hit the wall at a dead run momentum, carrying him up claws, finding microscopic grip points, Ilara's voice urging him higher. Hoch, hoch, über, up, over. He crested the wall and dropped down the other side, landing in a controlled roll. The barbed wire crawl, 30 feet of low-slung wire that required dogs to belly crawl while handlers ran alongside. This tested patience discipline, the ability to override instinct that screamed to stand up to run. Odin dropped flat and began the slow crawl, his body language showing none of the frustration or confusion that untrained dogs displayed. He understood the purpose, trusted the process. Finally, the water obstacle. The pool stretched 15 feet across too wide to jump too deep to wade. Dogs had to swim while handlers circled around. Odin hit the water without breaking stride, his powerful legs churning head-up eyes fixed on Ilara as she ran along the edge shouting encouragement. He pulled himself out on the far side, shook once, and returned to heel position. Ashford clicked the stopwatch, stared at it, clicked it again as if it might be malfunctioning. Time? Hawkins asked. 4 minutes, 32 seconds, sir. Ashford's voice carried disbelief. That's 48 seconds under the facility record. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. 48 seconds wasn't a small improvement. It was a revolution. 0 faults. Ashford continued, still staring at the stopwatch. Perfect execution on every obstacle. In 25 years, I've never seen a run like that. Thorne started clapping. Slowly at first, then faster. Other SEALs joined in. Within seconds, the entire crowd was applauding their skepticism, transforming into genuine respect. Ilara stood with Odin at her side, both of them breathing hard, both of them complete. She scratched behind Odin's ear, whispered, Guter Hund. Good dog. Hawkins approached, his expression difficult to read. Lieutenant Vance, Master Chief Ashford, my office. Bring Odin, now. The crowd parted as the 3 of them, 4 counting Odin, walked toward the administrative building. Ilara's pulse pounded in her ears. This was it. Judgment, decision, success or failure. The office was sparse functional, decorated only with photos of SEAL Team 3 through various deployments and a shadow box containing Hawkins' own trident and service ribbons. He gestured for them to sit, then leaned against his desk, arms crossed. That was impressive, Lieutenant. Thank you, sir. But that was training. Controlled environment, no stress, no danger, no lives on the line. Hawkins' eyes were hard assessing. I need to know if you and Odin are ready for the real thing. Ilara felt her spine straighten. Sir? Ashford pulled out his tablet, brought up a classified briefing document. Intelligence came in overnight. High priority target. Domestic threat. Hawkins took over. Donovan Cade, 48 years old. Former Army Ranger dishonorably discharged in 2009 for conduct violations. Since then, he's been off the grid, but NSA intercepted communications, suggesting he's planning an attack on Naval Base San Diego. He pulled up a photo. Cade was thick-shouldered, buzz-cut, with cold eyes that suggested someone who'd crossed lines and never looked back. Cade's an explosives expert, Hawkins continued. Worked as a contractor in Afghanistan and Iraq. His signature is sophisticated IED, design Mercury, tilt switches, anti-tamper mechanisms, remote detonation capabilities. We have intelligence suggesting he's assembled components for a major attack. Ilara's throat tightened. Target. Change of command ceremony next week. 300 personnel expected to attend. Admirals, captains, senior enlisted family members. Cade's planning to hit it with vehicle-borne IED, possibly supplemented with suicide vests on accomplices. The room fell silent, heavy with the weight of that information. Hawkins studied Ilara carefully.
There's something else you need to know. Cade wasn't just a contractor in Afghanistan. He designed IEDs for the army. Some of them were used in covert operations. And in 2011,
one of his devices killed your father. The words hit like a physical blow. Ilara felt the air leave her lungs, felt the room tilt slightly. Sir, the IED that detonated in Helmand Province on August 14, 2011, was identified post-blast as Cade's design. Triple failsafe anti-tamper, sophisticated remote trigger. He sold it to enemy forces, took payment from both sides, didn't care who died as long as he got paid. Hawkins' voice softened slightly. I didn't know about the connection until last night. Intelligence traced Cade's financial records, matched his signature to the blast site. Ilara, the man who killed your father, is planning another attack, and we have 48 hours to stop him. Ilara's hands clenched into fists. Her father's face flashed through her mind, laughing at the dinner table, teaching her to shoot, explaining the meaning of honor and sacrifice. Then the funeral, the folded flag, the 21-gun salute, the hole in her life that never filled. Donovan Cade had done that, had taken her father away for money, and now he was planning to kill 300 more people. What's the mission? Her voice came out steady, despite the hurricane of emotion inside. Raid on Cade's suspected location. Jacumba Hot Springs border region, 8-person SEAL element. Objective is capture alive. We need intelligence on his network, his accomplices, his full plan. But if capture isn't possible, lethal force is authorized. Hawkins looked at Odin, then back at Ilara. K-99 asset is critical. Cade's compound will be rigged with IEDs, booby traps, detection devices. We need Odin to clear the approach. Identify explosives, track if Cade runs. But this isn't training, Lieutenant. This is combat. Real bullets. Real explosives. Real possibility that neither of you comes home. He paused, letting that sink in. I can't order you to take this mission, not with the personal connection. If you want to recuse yourself, no one would question it. But I need to know. Now, are you and Odin operational? Ilara looked down at Odin, who sat calmly beside her chair, leaning slightly against her leg. 4 years they'd been apart. Less than 24 hours since they'd reunited. And now she was being asked to take him into combat against the man who'd killed her father. Every instinct screamed revenge. Every cell in her body wanted to hunt Cade down and make him pay for what he'd stolen from her. But that wasn't why she wore this uniform. That wasn't what her father had died for. She thought of Wild Bill's words from a letter he'd written her after the funeral. Your daddy didn't die for revenge or glory. He died to protect his brothers, to complete the mission to save lives. That's what warriors do. Remember that if you ever wear the uniform. Ilara lifted her eyes to meet Hawkins' gaze. Odin and I are ready, sir. Not because of my father. Because 300 people deserve to go home safe to their families. Because this is our job. Because this is what SEALs do. Hawkins studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right. Mission brief in 2 hours. Full tactical workup. You'll be part of an 8-person element myself, as team leader, Master Chief Ashford, as Second Petty Officer Thorne, as Breacher 4 Assaulters, and you as K-9 Handler, with secondary sniper support capability. Yes, sir. One more thing. Hawkins opened his desk drawer, pulled out something wrapped in cloth, and set it on the desk. Your father carried this on every mission. He unwrapped it carefully, revealing a SEAL trident, the same design as the one on Ilara's dresser, but worn with years of use, the gold finish rubbed away in places from being touched, carried held close during long deployments. After the blast, we recovered his gear, his rifle, his vest, his knife, and this. Hawkins held up the trident. I've carried it with me for 13 years, waiting for the right time to return it. I think that time is now. He extended it toward Ilara. Your father earned this through sacrifice. You've earned yours through skill and courage. Carry his tonight. But remember, you're not trying to be him. You're being you. And that's exactly what we need. Ilara took the trident with shaking hands. The metal was warm, heavy, with meaning and history. She could almost feel her father's presence in it. His strength, his determination, his unwavering commitment to mission and team. Thank you, sir. Her voice cracked slightly. Hawkins stood, signaling the meeting was over. Get some rest. Feed your dog. We brief at 1400 prep, at 1600 wheels, up at 2200, 48 hours from now. Cade's in custody, or in the ground, and 300 people get to attend that ceremony safely. Hoo-yah, sir. As Alara turned to leave, Ashford spoke up. Lieutenant, for what it's worth, I was wrong about you. You didn't earn your place here through your father's legacy. You earned it despite that burden. That's harder. Alara met his eyes, saw genuine respect there, and nodded. Thank you, Master Chief. She walked out into the California sunshine with Odin at her side and her father's trident heavy in her pocket. 30 hours remained before mission launch. Time to prepare for war. The next 24 hours blurred together in a controlled chaos of preparation. Alara moved through weapons qualifications, medical briefings, rules of engagement, reviews, and tactical rehearsals with the methodical focus her father had taught her. But first, she had a visit to make. The Veterans Affairs home in La Jolla sat on a hillside overlooking the Pacific, a sprawling facility housing retired warriors from every branch and every era. Alara found her grandfather in his room, sitting in his wheelchair by the window, staring out at the ocean with the 1,000-yard stare of someone whose mind was decades and continents away. Master Chief William Wild Bill Vance was 82 years old, his body reduced by age and injury to a fraction of its former strength. But his mind remained sharp, his eyes clear, and when he turned to see Alara standing in the doorway, his weathered face split into a smile. Girl, about time you visited your old granddad." She crossed the room, knelt beside his wheelchair, and hugged him carefully. He felt fragile in her arms, nothing like the granite warrior who taught her to shoot when she was 8 years old. "I found him, Grandpa. I found Odin." Wild Bill's eyes widened. "Your dog. The one from San Diego. They renamed him Thor, tried to retrain him. Broke him down so badly he became aggressive. But underneath all that trauma, he remembered me. We're together again." "Good. A warrior needs a good dog. Saved my life more than once in the field." Alara pulled up a chair, sat facing him. "There's a mission tomorrow night. The target is Grandpa. It's the man who killed Dad." Wild Bill's expression hardened. For a moment, she could see past the aged body to the warrior beneath the seal who'd served in Grenada and Panama, who'd done things in the shadows that would never be declassified. "And you're going after him." "It's my assignment. K-9 operations support for a raid on his compound. He's planning an attack on Naval Base San Diego. 300 potential casualties. So this is about the mission, not about your daddy. It's about both." "I'd be lying if I said otherwise." Alara's voice dropped. "I want him to pay for what he did. I want him to face justice for stealing Dad away from us. But that can't be why I pull the trigger. If I pull the trigger, it has to be for the right reasons." Wild Bill reached out, took her hand in his. His grip was weak now, trembling slightly, but his eyes burned with intensity. "Let me tell you about Grenada. October 1983. I was 41 years old. Thought I'd seen everything. We went in to rescue American medical students, but it turned into a real fight. My swim buddy, Mike O'Connell, good man. 3 kids back home got hit by sniper fire. Went down right in front of me." He paused, lost in memory. "I had the shot. Perfect angle on the sniper. Easy kill. But I was so angry, El. So goddamn angry that Mike was bleeding out that his kids were going to grow up without a daddy. I wanted that sniper to suffer. Wanted to make him pay. What did you do? I took the shot. Clean professional, exactly how I was trained. 1 round center mass. Enemy eliminated. And you know what I felt afterward? What? Relief, not satisfaction, not revenge, not justice. Just relief that the threat was neutralized, that my team was safer, that we could complete the mission and go home. The anger? It burned away in the moment I squeezed that trigger. Left nothing but duty." Wild Bill squeezed her hand. "Your daddy faced the same choice in Afghanistan. He could have fallen back, could have let the team scatter and hope for the best. But he chose duty over survival. Chose mission over self. That's what makes a warrior L. Not the killing, the choosing." Alara felt tears burn behind her eyes. "I'm scared, Grandpa. Scared I'll hesitate because it's personal, or scared I'll go too hard because it's personal. Either way, I could get people killed. Fear's good. Fear means you understand the stakes. But let me tell you something your daddy told me right before his last deployment. Wild Bill's voice grew softer, more reflective. He said, Dad, if something happens to me, make sure Elle knows this wasn't about glory or heroism. It was about doing the job that needed doing, protecting the people who needed protecting. That's all. That's enough. He looked directly at Alara. Tomorrow night, you do the job that needs doing. You protect the people who need protecting. You trust your training. Trust. Your dog trust your team. And you come home safe. Because that's what your daddy would want. Not revenge. Not justice. Just you, alive, continuing the mission. Alara leaned forward, pressed her forehead against her grandfather's. I love you, Grandpa. I love you too, Elle girl. Now get out of here and go be a SEAL. Make us proud. Make yourself proud. As she stood to leave, Wild Bill called out, Elle, one more thing. That trident your daddy carried, it's not a weight, it's a compass. When you don't know what to do, remember what it stands for. Sea, air, land. Ready to fight anywhere, anytime for anyone who needs defending. Let that guide you. Alara nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat, and walked out into the corridor. Behind her, Wild Bill Vance turned back to the window, looked out at the Pacific Ocean, where he'd trained as a young man 50 years ago, and whispered a prayer to gods he wasn't sure he believed in anymore. Keep her safe, please. I've lost a son to this war. Don't make me lose a granddaughter, too. The Tactical Operations Center at SEAL Team 3 hummed with controlled energy. Maps covered the walls, satellite imagery displayed on multiple screens, communications equipment linking them to higher command and supporting elements. 1,400 hours. Mission brief. 8 SEALs sat in folding chairs facing the main display. Alara recognized most of them now, had trained alongside them over the past 30 hours, earning their respect through performance rather than pedigree. Hawkins stood at the front, a laser pointer in his hand, his expression carved from stone. Mission Jupiter Strike. Objective capture or eliminate Donovan Cade. Prevent terrorist attack on Naval Base San Diego. Secure intelligence on enemy network. He clicked to the first slide. Satellite imagery of a compound in Jacumba Hot Springs, less than 2 miles from the Mexican border. Single-story main structure, 2 outbuildings, 1 vehicle visible in driveway. Target location confirmed through NSA signals intelligence and DEA surveillance. Cade is believed to be at this location with 2 to 4 accomplices. Intel suggests 40 pounds of C4 stored on site, along with detonators, triggering mechanisms, and possibly completed IEDs ready for deployment. Next slide. Timeline. Change of command ceremony is in 6 days. Cade's communications suggest he plans to strike within that window. We cannot wait for additional intelligence. We move tonight. Thorne raised his hand. Rules of engagement, sir. Positive ID required. Cade is priority capture. We need his intelligence network, his accomplice list, his full operational plan. But if capture is not feasible, lethal force is authorized. Collateral damage is unacceptable. This is American soil, and there may be civilians in the area. Ashford spoke up. K-9 operations. Hawkins gestured to Alara. Lieutenant Vance and Odin will lead approach and entry. Their primary mission is explosive detection. Secondary mission is tracking if Cade attempts to flee. Vance also provides sniper support if required. He clicked to the tactical plan. Insertion at 0245 via ground vehicles. 2 Humvees dropped 3 kilometers from target. Approach on foot, silent movement, full tactical gear, and NVGs. Odin leads clearing for IEDs and booby traps. The plan unfolded in detail. Stack formation, breach points, clearance procedures, extraction protocols, medical evacuation plans, everything rehearsed, everything coordinated. Comms check at 2100, final brief at 2130, rollout at 2200. Any questions? Silence. These were professionals. They knew their roles. All right, get your gear, get your heads right, and be ready. Dismissed. As the team filed out, Hawkins caught Alara's arm. You good? Yes, sir. I mean really good. Because once we launch, there's no turning back. And if things go sideways, I need to know you'll keep your head. Alara met his gaze without flinching. Commander, my father taught me that emotion is fuel. It can power you forward or burn you up. I choose forward. Odin and I are ready. Håkon studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Your father said almost the exact same thing before Helmand. I didn't believe him enough then. I believe you now. Go get prepped. The shooting range echoed with the crack of rifle fire. Ilara settled behind the M40A3 sniper rifle, pressing her cheek to the stock. Through the Schmidt-Bender scope, the target wavered in the heat mirage at 800 yards. Håkon stood beside her, arms crossed, watching with the critical eye of someone who'd made impossible shots under impossible conditions. Read the mirage. He set his voice the same calm tone her father had used. Ilara studied the shimmer of heat between her position and the target. Boiling. Heat waves rising vertically at the target. But she scanned the terrain. Mirage is angling left to right at 400 yards. Grass movement shows wind picking up there. Good. Quantify it. She watched the grass stems bending. 8 miles per hour, 6 minutes of angle right correction at this distance. Your father would have said 7, but your math is solid. Hawkins gestured to the weather meter. Atmospheric conditions. Ilara glanced at the kestrel clipped to her vest. 29.4 inches mercury, 72% humidity, 58 degrees Fahrenheit. Dense air? What's that mean? Bullet flies flatter, hits higher, 0.4 MOA correction up. Temperature differential from 0. We zeroed at 78 this morning, 20-degree drop. She calculated. 1 MOA lower, cancels the density gain. Net hold original elevation. Spin drift at 800, 0.5 MOA right. Coriolis effect. Ilara calculated latitude and azimuth. Shooting south from Coronado, 33 degrees north. Earth's rotation adds 0.3 MOA right at this distance. Total windage, 6 MOA base wind, plus 0.5 spin, plus 0.3. Coriolis equals 6.8 MOA. Right. She converted. 54 inches, 4.5 feet. Hawkins' expression didn't change, but something in his eyes softened slightly. Your old man taught you well? Make the shot. Ilara adjusted her scope. 32 clicks right. She settled into position, controlled. Her breathing found the natural pause between heartbeats. The target's center ring sat in her reticle, but her point of aim was 4 feet left, trusting physics and her father's training. The trigger broke clean. 2 seconds later, the target pinged. Dead center. Hawkins checked the spotting scope. Impact 1 inch left of center. Kill shot. He turned to her. Your father made this same shot in Kandahar. Enemy sniper, 820-yard sandstorm. 1 round. I watched him do it. Now I've watched you. He paused. He'd be proud. Not because you're following his path, because you're proving you can walk it on your own. The armory smelled of gun oil and cordite. Ilara methodically assembled her loadout, each piece fitting into place with practiced precision. M4A1 carbine with EO Tech holographic sight and suppressor. 7 magazines, 30 rounds each, 210 total. 6-hour P26, 3 magazines, 45 rounds. Father's K-bar knife on her belt. Plate carrier with level 4 ceramic plates. PVS 15 night vision goggles. MBITR radio. Medical kit with combat gauze, tourniquet, chest seals. Father's seal trident in her breast pocket over her heart. And Odin's gear. Ballistic vest covering his vitals. Canine goggles for dust and debris. Tactical leash and collar with integrated camera. Paw protection booties. She worked in silence, her mind clear, her hands steady. This was what she'd trained for, what her father had trained her for. Tomorrow, it would all come down to skill, trust, and the bond between handler and dog that transcended words. Ilara finished her prep, checked Odin's gear one final time, and walked out into the gathering darkness. The mission clock was ticking, and there was no turning back. The desert night swallowed sound. 2 Humvees rolled through the darkness 3 kilometers from target, engines barely audible. Headlights dark. Navigation by GPS and night vision only. The team sat in silence, each seal lost in private rituals that preceded combat. Ilara sat in the rear of the lead vehicle, with Odin between her knees, one hand resting on his ballistic vest, feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing. Through her NVGs, the world was rendered in shades of green scrub brush, distant mountains, her teammates' faces reduced to skull-like masks in amplified starlight. 2:43 hours. 2 minutes to drop off. Hawkins' voice crackled through her earpiece. Comms check. Alpha 1. Alpha 2, Ashford responded. Alpha 3, Thorne said. Down the line, each SEAL confirmed their radio. When Alara's turn came, her voice was steady. Alpha 7. Copy all. 2 minutes. Alara's pulse was elevated but controlled. Her breathing measured. This was the state her father had taught her to find alert, but not panicked. Focused, but not rigid. The sweet spot where training took over and conscious thought became unnecessary. She leaned down, whispered to Odin in German. Gleich geht's los, mein Freund. Zeig ihnen, was du kannst. Soon we begin, my friend. Show them what you can do. Odin's tail wagged once. His body was tense with anticipation, but not fear. He knew this, remembered the countless training exercises, the scenarios, the building clearances they'd practiced together years ago. The Humvee stopped. No announcement needed. The team flowed out in practiced silence, forming a loose tactical column. 8 shadows moving through desert darkness. Hawkins took point with Alara and Odin immediately behind him. Ashford third, Thorne fourth with his breaching kit, 4 assaulters behind them in fire team formation. Hand signals only now. No radio chatter unless absolutely necessary. They moved. The desert terrain was treacherous, loose rock, hidden gullies. Cactus waiting to tear flesh. But the team navigated it with the ease of men who'd trained in every environment Earth offered. Their footfalls were whisper quiet, their spacing perfect, a machine of 8 parts moving as one. Every 50 meters, Hawkins raised his fist. Halt. Alara would move forward. With Odin, let him work the ground ahead, searching for chemical signatures of explosives buried beneath sand. Odin's training was specialized detection of C4TNT, PETN, RDX, ammonium nitrate, and a dozen other compounds used in military and improvised explosives. His nose contained 300 million olfactory receptors, compared to a human's 6 million. He could detect 2 parts per trillion, a single molecule of explosive compound in a cubic meter of air. 400 meters from the vehicles, Odin stopped, sat. The trained alert behavior. Alara's hand went up immediately. The column froze. She knelt beside Odin, ran her hand over the ground he'd indicated. Nothing visible. But when she brushed away a thin layer of sand, her fingers found it, monofilament line nearly invisible, stretched across the path at ankle height. Tripwire. She followed it with her eyes to a shape half buried in brush 10 feet away. Claymore mine. Directional anti-personnel device. 700 steel balls in a curved plastic case designed to shred everything in a 60-degree arc. Someone had been expecting visitors. Alara marked the location with an infrared strobe visible only through night vision and guided the team around it in a wide arc. Thorne paused long enough to photograph the placement for post-mission intelligence, then they continued. 250 meters. Odin alerted again. Another tripwire, this one connected to a different type of mine, improvised, possibly command detonated from the compound. 100 meters. A third alert. Pressure plate buried in sand, likely connected to explosives that would crater the path and alert everyone within a mile. Cade had fortified his approach. But he'd never planned for a dog, with Odin's training and Alara's skill. They reached the final, covered position, 75 meters from the target compound. The team went prone in a shallow depression, studying the objective through night vision and thermal optics. The main building was single-story, stucco windows, barred metal door. 2 outbuildings, one large enough to be a garage, one smaller, possibly storage. A white van sat in the driveway, backed in for quick departure. Thermal imaging showed heat signatures. 3 in the main building clustered in what looked like a central room, 1 in the garage outbuilding. No movement. Hawkins spoke in barely audible whispers through their comm system. 4 tangos confirmed. Van is likely vehicle-borne IED. Vance can Odin detect from this range. Alara commanded Odin forward slightly, let him sample the air. His body language changed, more alert, more focused. He looked back at her and sat. Positive detection, sir. Heavy explosive signature. Van is definitely loaded. Copy. Adjust plan. Thorne, you're on van containment post-breach. Ashford, you've got the garage. I'll take main building with assault element. Vance, you and Odin lead entry on main building, clear for IEDs, then transition to tracking if anyone runs. Whispered confirmations rippled through the team. Execute in 3, 2, 1, move. They flowed forward, like water 8 shapes gliding through darkness toward the compound. Odin led Alara to the main building's front door, nose working reading the air for any hint of explosives. He sniffed the door frame, the threshold, the walls on either side, then sat looking back at Alara. She keyed her radio. Door is rigged, explosives detected. Hawkins adjusted immediately. Window entry, Thorn west side window controlled breach. The team shifted. Thorn moved to a barred window, studied it through thermal imaging. No heat signatures directly behind it. He pulled out a small frame charge shaped explosive, designed to cut through window bars without excessive blast. Alara held Odin at distance, protecting him from the impending explosion. She felt her heart hammering, now felt the weight of her father's trident over her heart, felt the presence of 13 years of grief and anger and purpose condensing into this single moment. Thorn placed the charge, stepped back, raised his fist, breaching in 3, 2, 1. The charge detonated with a sharp crack. The window bars blew inward. Before the echo faded, a flashbang grenade arced through the opening. Bang! Blinding light, deafening concussion. Go, go, go! The assault element poured through the window. Hawkins first, then 2 assaulters, then Alara with Odin. They flowed into a living room, lit by the afterglow of the flashbang night vision, rendering everything in stark green contrast. 2 men staggered in the room, blinded and deafened, fumbling for weapons. Both wore tactical vests. Both had AK pattern rifles. Federal agents, get down! The men didn't comply. Couldn't hear the commands through the ringing in their ears. One brought his rifle up. Suppressed gunfire. 3-round burst. The man dropped. The second man dove for cover behind a couch. More gunfire. He went down too. Room cleared. 2 tangos down, moving. The team flowed deeper into the house. Hallway, bedroom to the left. Odin sniffed, alerted sat. Alara keyed her radio. Explosives, don't enter. They bypassed it. Second bedroom, clear. Bathroom, clear. Central room. What should have been a dining area had been converted into a workshop. Work tables covered in IED components. Bricks of C4 stacked like building blocks. Mercury switches, cell phone detonators, ball bearings for shrapnel, enough explosive material to level a city block. And maps, detailed diagrams of Naval Base San Diego. The parade ground where the change of command ceremony would occur. Entry points marked, optimal placement for maximum casualties calculated with chilling precision, but no Cade, no third target. Hawkins keyed his radio. Vance, where's number 3? Alara was already moving. Odin had picked up a sent human recent heading toward the back of the house. She followed him to a bathroom. Empty. But Odin scratched at the floor, whining. Alara knelt, ran her hands over the tile. Found a seam, a hatch, tunnel entrance. Tunnel, he's running. Ashford's status on garage. 1 tango neutralized. Garage clear. Found tunnel entrance here too. A tunnel system. Sophisticated. Probably leading toward the Mexican border, less than 2 miles south. Hawkins made the call. Vance, Thorn, pursue through tunnel. Rest of us secure site and call in EOD for this explosives nightmare. Rules of engagement, unchanged capture. If possible, eliminate if necessary. Alara looked at Thorn, saw him nod, saw him check his rifle. Then she looked at Odin. This was it. The moment when training became reality, when theory became blood. She gave the command. Such, for Folge, search, track. Odin dropped into the tunnel. Alara followed Thorn right behind her. The tunnel was narrow, 4 feet in diameter, concrete lines sloping downward. Emergency lighting every 20 feet cast pools of yellow illumination. It smelled of damp earth and fear sweat. Alara moved with her rifle up, following Odin, who pulled against his leash, tracking scent. Behind her, Thorn maintained spacing covering their 6. 100 meters in the tunnel opened into a larger chamber. A staging area with supplies, water, ammunition. Maps on the wall, showing the tunnel system branching in multiple directions. Odin didn't hesitate. He pulled left toward the southern branch. They followed. The tunnel narrowed again, descended steeper. The air grew thicker, harder to breathe. Alara's night vision showed heat signatures ahead, distant, moving fast. Contact. Single target 50 meters ahead, moving away. Copy. Pursue. They ran now, abandoning stealth for speed. Odin's claws scrabbled on concrete. Alara's breath came hard in the confined space. The weight of her gear, The thickness of the air, the knowledge that Donovan Cade, the man who'd killed her father, was somewhere ahead in this darkness. The tunnel twisted, turned, opened into another chamber, and there he was. Donovan Cade stood in the center of the room, 40 feet away, illuminated by a single hanging bulb, thick-shouldered, buzz-cut, cold eyes. And in front of him, his arm wrapped around her throat, a pistol pressed to her head, a young woman, early 20s, hiking clothes, tear-streaked face, a hostage. Alara raised her rifle, but had no shot. The woman's body blocked any center mass targeting. Thorne moved right, trying to get an angle, but Cade shifted, keeping the hostage between them. "Seals?" Cade said, his voice calm, almost amused. "Should have known. Stay back or she dies." The hostage sobbed. "Please, I was just hiking. I don't know anything, please." "Shut up." Cade's voice was flat, emotionless. To Alara and Thorne, "Drop your weapons, now." Alara's mind raced. Distance 40 feet. Target 3-inch window, Cade's head partially exposed on the right side. Lighting poor, single-source shadows. Hostage terrified, unpredictable movement. Risk assessment catastrophic if she missed. She thought of her father. Thought of the impossible shot Hawkins had described, 820 yards, sandstorm, one chance. Thought of Wild Bill's words, the choosing. That's what makes a warrior. "Let her go, Cade." Alara's voice was steady. "Your fight's with us, not her." Cade's eyes focused on her for the first time, studying her face. Then something shifted in his expression. Recognition. "Wait, I know those eyes." "Vance?" "Garrett Vance's kid. The one who died in Afghanistan." Alara felt ice flood her veins. "You knew my father. Knew him, hell, I killed him. That IED in Helmand, my design. Triple fail-safe Mercury tilt switch. Beautiful piece of work. Got paid 20 grand for it from both sides. Army contracted the design. Taliban paid me to sell them the specs. Everybody happy. Well, except your daddy." He smiled. "Cold. Empty. How's it feel knowing your old man died for my retirement fund?" The rage that swept through Alara was physical. A red wave that threatened to drown thought, drown training, drown everything, except the need to make this man suffer. Her finger tightened on the trigger, but then Odin whined, soft, concerned. The sound he made when she was stressed, when her emotional state affected him, and that sound cut through the rage like a blade. Alara breathed, forced herself to think past the anger. This wasn't about revenge. This was about mission. About protecting 300 people at that ceremony. About stopping a terrorist. About doing the job her father had died doing. She looked at the hostage, terrified, innocent, wrong place at the wrong time. Looked at Cade, calculating cold, already shifting toward the exit tunnel behind him. He was going to run, going to kill the hostage as distraction and disappear into Mexico, unless she stopped him. Now, here, the shot was impossible. 3 inches of exposed skull at 40 feet. Moving target. Low light. High stakes. But she was her father's daughter. Her grandfather's granddaughter. And they taught her that impossible just meant no one else had done it yet. Alara's breathing slowed. Her vision narrowed. The world reduced to sight picture front post, Cade's temporal bone, the tiny window of skull between hostage's head and his shoulder. Her father's voice in her memory. Purpose makes you precise, Wild Bill's wisdom. Fear means you understand the stakes. Hawkins' trust. Your father said almost the exact same thing before Helmand. All of it converging in this moment. Range 40 feet, approximately 13 yards. Wind none. Interior environment. Target temporal bone right side. 3 inches exposed. Ballistics M4A1, 5.56 millimeter NATO. 62 grain projectile. Muzzle velocity 970 feet per second. At this range, essentially flat trajectory. Breathing exhale halfway, hold between heartbeats. Sight alignment perfect. Trigger press, smooth, steady 5.5 pound squeeze boom between. The rifle cracked, single shot. The world seemed to pause. Then Cade's head snapped back. The pistol fell from his hand. His arm released the hostage. His body crumpled like a puppet with cut strings. The hostage stumbled forward, screaming alive, unharmed. Thorne rushed past Alara, secured Cade's body, checked for pulse. Target down. 1 Tango KIA. Alara lowered her rifle hands, shaking now that the moment had passed. Thorne was talking to the hostage, calming her, checking her for injuries. His voice on the radio. Hawk Tunnel secured. Cade is KIA. 1 civilian rescued unharmed. We're RTB. Hawkins' response was immediate. Good work. Exfil in 5. EOD is inbound for the explosives. Odin pressed against her leg, whining softly. She knelt, wrapped her arms around him, buried her face in his fur. Thorne's hand landed on her shoulder. You saved that woman's life, and you saved 300 people who'll never know how close they came. That matters, Lieutenant. They guided the hostage back through the tunnel, back through the compound, back to the surface, where the rest of the team was securing the site. Explosive ordnance disposal teams were already arriving, preparing to render safe the massive cache of IED components. The hostage was turned over to FBI agents who'd arrived with EOD. She'd be debriefed, protected eventually, returned to her life with trauma that therapy might help, but never fully erase. Cade's body was extracted for identification and intelligence purposes. His phone, recovered from his pocket, contained detonator codes, contact lists, financial records. Everything needed to dismantle his network. The mission was a success. But as they loaded into the Humvees for extract, as the adrenaline faded and exhaustion set in, Alara felt the weight of what she'd done settling into her bones. She'd taken a life, ended someone's story, become the kind of person who could make that call and live with it. The question was whether she could live with it well. 3 days after the mission, Alara sat in Hawkins' office for the formal debrief. The room felt different now, less intimidating, more familiar. She'd earned her place here, proven herself in the only way that mattered. But the cost of that proof sat heavy on her conscience. Hawkins reviewed the mission report on his tablet, then set it aside. Cade's phone gave us everything. 6 additional arrests made in the past 72 hours. His entire network rolled up. The attack on Naval Base is off. 300 people will attend that ceremony next week, and they'll never know they were almost killed by a man with nothing to lose and everything to sell. He looked at Alara directly. You did that, Lieutenant. You and Odin. That shot you made. I've been in this business for 30 years, and I've never seen anything like it. 40 feet, 3-inch target hostage situation, low light. That was a 1 in a million shot. My father made it at 800 yards, sir. Your father was the best I ever served with. You're his equal, maybe better. Hawkins leaned back in his chair. But that's not what you came here to talk about, is it? Alara shook her head. Sir, I killed him. I know it was justified. Know it was necessary. Know he was a terrorist who would have killed hundreds. But I pulled the trigger, wanting revenge. Wanting him to pay for my father. And now, I don't know if I did it for the right reasons or the wrong ones. Hawkins was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of experience of decades spent making impossible choices in impossible situations. Your father faced this too. Every operator does. The question isn't whether you felt anger. The question is whether that anger controlled you or whether you controlled it. He stood, moved to the window, looked out at the compound. Afghanistan, 2011. Your father and I were pinned down, enemy closing from 3 sides. I gave him an order to retreat, to fall back to the extraction point. He told me no, said he was going to charge that machine gun nest to give us a window. Hawkins turned back to face her. I asked him why. Why disobey a direct order? Why risk his life when we could have tried something else? And he said, because I'm angry, that we're trapped, angry that good men might die today, angry that the enemy thinks they've won, and I can use that anger to power me forward, or I can let it freeze me in place. I choose forward. That's almost exactly what I told you before the mission, sir. I know, because you're his daughter. Same blood, same training, same choice when it matters most. Hawkins moved closer. Alara, you pulled that trigger because a hostage's life depended on it. Because 300 people at a ceremony needed you to stop a terrorist. Because that was your job, your duty, your mission. The fact that you also felt anger at the man who killed your father doesn't make the shot wrong. It makes you human. He reached into his desk, pulled out something, set it on the surface between them. A form. Transfer orders. Master Chief Ashford submitted his recommendation yesterday. You are officially assigned to SEAL Team 3 as primary K-9 handler. Odin is permanently partnered with you. Your probation is over. You're one of us now. Elara stared at the orders, feeling something tight in her chest finally loosen. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me. You earned it. Through skill, courage, and the kind of split-second decision-making that keeps people alive. Your father would be proud, not because you followed in his footsteps, but because you walked your own path with the same honor he carried. He paused, then added more softly, I'm proud too, for what it's worth. It's worth everything, sir. After the debrief, Elara drove to La Jolla, to the Veterans Affairs home, to her grandfather's room, overlooking the Pacific. Wild Bill sat in his wheelchair by the window, as always. But when he turned to see her, his eyes lit up with something beyond simple recognition. Pride. Deep, fierce, grandfatherly pride. You did it, he said simply. Elara crossed the room and knelt beside his wheelchair. I killed him, Grandpa. The man who killed Dad. I took the shot, and he died, and now I don't know how to feel. Tell me how you do feel. She thought about it, really examined her emotional state for the first time since the mission. Relieved that he can't hurt anyone else. Sad that it had to end that way. Guilty that part of me wanted revenge. Grateful that the hostage survived. Exhausted, confused, empty. Wild Bill took her hand in his. That's called being human, L-girl. Warriors who feel nothing become monsters. Warriors who feel too much break. You're right in the middle. That's where you need to be. You told me that before the mission. I'm telling you again, because you need to hear it again. You did the right thing, for the right reasons. The fact that you're struggling with it now, that's how I know you're still the girl I raised, still the woman your daddy would be proud of. He squeezed her hand. But let me ask you something. When you took that shot in that split second before you pulled the trigger, what were you thinking about? Elara closed her eyes, went back to that moment. The tunnel, the hostage, Cade's cold smile. And then I was thinking about the woman, that she didn't deserve to die, that she had family somewhere, people who loved her, a whole life ahead of her. And I was the only person who could give that back to her. Not revenge. No, not in that moment. Just mission. Just doing what needed to be done. Wild Bill smiled, tears shining in his old eyes. Then you made the right choice. Your daddy made the same choice in Afghanistan. He didn't die for revenge or glory. He died so his team could complete the mission and go home, so 7 men could see their families again. That's the Vance legacy, not revenge. Protection. He reached up, touched her face with a trembling hand. I'm so proud of you, Elle. Your father would be too. You're a SEAL now, not because of the uniform or the training or the missions, because you made the hard choice, and you'll carry the weight of it with honor. Elara stayed with him for 2 hours, talking about the mission, about Odin, about the future. When she finally left, the sun was setting over the Pacific, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. She drove back to Coronado with Odin in the passenger seat beside her, his head out the window, tongue lolling completely at peace. 2 days later, they held an informal ceremony at the memorial wall. Nothing official, nothing recorded, just the team. Hawkins, Ashford, Thorne, the 4 assaulters who'd been on the mission, and Wild Bill in his wheelchair, transported from La Jolla for the occasion. Elara stood before the wall, before her father's name, carved in granite with Odin sitting at attention beside her. She held 2 things. The SEAL trident that had been her father's, worn and carried through 13 years of deployments, and her own K-9 handler qualification badge, newly earned, still bright and unworn. Dad, she said quietly, aware that everyone was listening but not caring. I found Odin. We're together again doing what you trained us to do. And I completed a mission. Stopped a bad guy. Saved some lives. Made the hard choices. She paused, voice catching. I thought finding the man who killed you would make me feel better. Would give me closure or justice or something. But it didn't. It just made me understand what you must have felt in Afghanistan. the weight of taking a life, the cost of doing what's necessary. She placed her father's trident on the memorial shelf beneath his name. But beside it, she added her own qualification badge. I'm not trying to be you, Dad. I'm trying to honor you by being the best version of myself, by protecting people who need protecting, by doing the job that needs doing, by making you proud, not through imitation, but through integrity. She stepped back, rendered a perfect salute, held it for 5 seconds, then dropped it. Odin, without being commanded, raised his paw in his own approximation of a salute. The team followed suit, 8 SEALs and 1 retired Master Chief, all saluting the memorial, honoring the fallen, acknowledging the continuum of service that stretched from Wild Bill's generation through Garrett's to Alara's and beyond. When they lowered their hands, Hawkins spoke. Garrett Vance was my swim buddy, my brother. For 13 years, I've stood here wondering if I failed him. His daughter taught me something these past weeks. Garrett didn't fail. He succeeded. He protected his team, completed the mission, lived and died by the code we all serve. And now, Alara carries that forward, in her own way, on her own terms. He turned to face her. Welcome to the team, Lieutenant. You're not replacing your father. You're continuing what he started. That's what legacy means? Ashford stepped forward, extended his hand. I was wrong about you, ma'am. You didn't earn your place through your father's name. You earned it despite that burden. That's harder, and that's what makes it real. I'd serve with you any time. Thorne grinned. That shot in the tunnel, I'm putting it in the training manual. Advanced Close Quarters Marksmanship by Lieutenant Vance. You're famous now. One by one, the other SEALs approached, shook her hand, welcomed her officially into the brotherhood that transcended gender background legacy. She was one of them now, not because of who her father was, but because of who she'd proven herself to be. Finally, Wild Bill wheeled forward. Alara knelt beside him. 3 generations, he said softly. Me, your daddy, and now you. All of us served, all of us sacrificed, all of us did what needed doing. He touched her face. But you're the first to do it your own way, on your own terms, with your own strength. That's what makes me proudest. That evening, Alara walked along Coronado Beach with Odin running ahead of her in the surf, chasing waves and barking at seabirds. The sun was setting, painting the sky in impossible colors, and the Pacific stretched to the horizon like a promise. 3 generations had walked this beach. Wild Bill as a young warrior. Her father in his prime. Now Alara finding her own way forward. She'd killed a man, saved lives, found her lost companion. The nightmares would come Cade following the hostages' screams, the tunnel's darkness. But so would the knowledge that 300 people would attend that ceremony safely. That she'd done the job that needed doing. That she'd carry this weight forward, not let it drag her down. Legacy wasn't about living up to the past. It was about carrying forward with honor. Her father would understand. Odin ran back to her, dropped a piece of driftwood at her feet, looked up expectantly. She picked it up, threw it into the surf, watched him race after it with pure joy. This was her life now, her mission, her team, her dog, her legacy, not inherited, earned. She pulled out her phone, took a photo of Odin playing in the waves with the sunset behind him, and texted it to Hawkins with a simple message. Ready for the next mission? His response came back immediately. Good. Because there's always a next mission. Welcome to the team's lieutenant. Alara smiled, pocketed her phone, and called Odin back to her side. Together they turned and walked up the beach toward the compound, toward the memorial wall, toward the future. Behind them, the sun sank below the Pacific horizon. Ahead, the lights of Coronado glowed against the gathering darkness. And somewhere between those 2 points, past and future loss, and hope, legacy, and independence, Alara Vance found her place. She was her father's daughter, her grandfather's granddaughter. But most importantly, she was herself. A SEAL, a handler, a warrior, ready for whatever came next.